Okay, guys, we're having some technical difficulties. I think I've got them fixed. If not, you'll never see this. Anyway, this is Philip Martin, and this is On Film, on video. And I'm back. I mean, I was back last week, but some people didn't notice, I guess. 2 weeks ago, it took off because I was off. But I'm not off now. I'm back on. So there we go. Anyway, this is a strange week, as they all have been in these COVIDian times. We either have 4 or 5 movies opening this week, and the wild card is this film called Fat Man, which you've probably heard about, and it's Mel Gibson as Santa Claus, and he's being stalked by a hitman called the Skinny Man, played by Walter Goggins, and the internet trailer, or the trailer, has just been crazy, blowing up, and everybody's all excited about it. I'm not sure it's playing here. It may be playing in Northwest Arkansas, which would be enough for us to get a review in the newspaper, because you can drive to Northwest Arkansas if you're really that crazy to see it. But if it's not, I might hold a review. The other thing that's really kind of interesting is there's a film called Echo Boomers that is being directed by Seth Savoy, who is a Little Rock Catholic graduate. And I really want to see that film. I really hope we get that review in for this week, but we haven't got the screener yet. So I don't know. And the other films we're on top of. We're on top of Freaky, which I thought was a remake of Freaky Friday, but it's turned out it's not. So it's a Blumhouse horror film. All right. And then there's Ammonite, which Piers Marchant tells me is very good. I have not seen it. It was a big Toronto film, I think. I think that's where it got a lot of its buzz. And what's the last one? I can't remember. But anyway, we're going to have that too. So it's another Piers film, I think. So we're all set for movies this week, and we've got our regular features. Courtney Lanning tells me that Wolfwalkers is the best film of the year. We'll see. We have the on-film stuff. This is the on-film stuff. We have the new movies, and we have, we'll have a new flashback. We're going to start something different with that this week. We're going to start talking about, we've got several from Piers that I'll try to mix in over the next few weeks about recent Criterion Collection releases that of movies that, may have been fairly recent, but not absolutely new. Anyway, with Fat Man, I don't know. It's like, here it is, the beginning of it. It's right here on my computer, and I'm ready to watch it and go after it. Oh, wait a minute. I hope it, it's still paused. Put this down. But, like I said, we don't know about that. We don't know whether we're going to need it or not. We don't know about Echo Boomers, which I really do hope we get. And, it's been interesting doing this these past 8 months or so, because we have not had the big tentpole movies that pull everybody into the theaters and everybody pays attention to, even if they don't go see them. Last week we had Let Him Go, the Kevin Costner, Diane Lane movie, and that's behaved more like a movie in the theaters than anything else, I think, since then. I mean, Tenet did to a certain extent, but, sort of Tenet was one of those things we really expected. Really expected a huge box office. It didn't get it, but Let It Go, relative to the size of the film, Let Him Go, sort of performed all right, and we'll see how that holds up. But so maybe people are ready to go back, and maybe, we've got a vaccine on the way, probably. We have a new guy in Washington in a couple months, so maybe by next March, April, things will be really kind of close to normal. Who knows? I mean, right now, it's still hard to imagine going out to a theater or a crowded theater, or to a restaurant or anything like that. But who knows? Things change, and as we've seen, things change. I might go see Let Him Go this weekend, actually, because there aren't anybody in the theaters, which is like an incentive for someone like me to go. If it's not crowded, that's good. But who knows? I wanted to talk a little bit about this. It's a really interesting company. I really love them. These guys, Arrow Video. Arrow Video, see that? And I don't know much about them except that I've been on their list for a couple of years now. And they produce the most interesting, next to the Criterion Collection, I think they're my favorite DVD distributors. I really love the Criterion Collection. It's up there. See, that's them up there. I really love their stuff, and for the reasons that cinephiles love Criterion Collection. They pick really good movies, and they do really good, transfers and packaging and ancillary material that I never get to watch, but it's still there. Arrow Video does the same sort of thing, but they're this interesting blend of art house and independent horror and just cult movie sort of things. Like I just showed you the Last Starfighter, which a lot of you '80s guys, '80s kids, will remember fondly. I don't know if I've ever seen this film all the way through. It came out like in 1984, right before I started, reviewing movies in earnest. I was a big movie fan, but this was not to my taste, or I didn't think it was to my taste at the time anyway. So I never saw it in a theater. I have seen probably most of it, over the years on cable at various times and stuff like that. And I know about it, of course, which is one of those weird things when you start learning about movies. Sometimes you know about movies that you've never seen, and to the point that you probably don't even need to see them. I'm reminded about how Dwight Yoakam talks about the Flying Burrito Brothers when he was a kid, which was also when I was a kid, and how you never heard them, but you heard about them, and you knew about the band, and you knew that they dressed in nudie suits and all this, but you never really heard their music because we had only a few, we only had the radio stations we had. And, you could go to the record store and dig around the racks, but you probably weren't going to take a flyer on a Flying Burrito Brother album if you could find it. So someone had to either turn you on to them, or you had to, splurge or just be lucky, but you never really got to hear them. It's sort of the same way with some of these films. It's sort of like, yeah, I know all about The Last Starfighter. I don't know that I've ever seen it. I know it was directed by Nick Castle, who was the guy in The Mask and Halloween and stuff like that. And I know that people love it. But, again, Last Starfighter. These all came out like, one of the problems we have is we have our DVD column, but it's supposed to be about movies that come out right down this week. Maybe one from last week, maybe one from next week or something, but they're all coming out right about now. And Arrow is a wonderful company, but I tend to send these things out. I think this has been out for a little over a month, and it doesn't really fit in that column anymore. I mean, I might add it in there if we need some more room or something, but I don't know. Deeper You Dig. Who knows about this movie? Somebody out there. I'm sure some of the people that pay attention to this video probably know about The Deeper You Dig, but it's an independent horror film by John Adams, or the Adams family, because I think it's his family members all in this. It's credited to the Adams family on the back of the package here, and it's a really interesting film about this guy who. This is funny. He says a tragic accident results in Echo, who's a character's murder, which it's either an accident or it's murder. It could be manslaughter, but it's not murder if it's an accident. So anyway, but that's the kind of. But still, this sounds like a very interesting film, and you get 2 for 1 because you get John Adams' The Hatred on here too. And if you know about these things, you probably are going to really be excited about this package because it's a cool package. It's even got a poster in it. Wow. They got audio commentary by the 2 stars, one of whom is also the director, and Fright Fest TV interview with the Addams family, which I guess is Yeah, like I said, I don't know anything about the Addams family as filmmakers, but some people do, and you learn things. So now, if someone mentions the Addams family, I know it's not just Charles Addams. I know it's also this filmmaker co-op or whatever. So another one came out just recently is Warning from Space, which is a 1956 Japanese science fiction, allegedly the first Japanese science fiction film to be shot in color. This package really sounds good too. Again, I have a vague awareness of this movie. I don't know much about it. I don't know that I've ever seen it. But it's written by the same guy who wrote some of Kurosawa's movies, Seven Samurai, Hideo Oguni, and it's got a good package. It's got scene by scene commentary by Stuart Galbraith IV, the author of Monsters Are Attacking Tokyo, and it's got the American dub version on here. If anybody would want that, and some people do. I mean, I'm a subtitles guy. And it's kind of hard. I'm watching on Netflix. I'm watching this Danish TV series, Borgen. And Borgen is like this soap opera about the first female prime minister of Denmark. And it's dubbed. And it bothers me that it's dubbed, though I've gotten to the point where I can ignore that. It takes a while, but it's dubbed, and it's dubbed by UK actors, and so you get this kind of funny blend of Irish and Scottish, a little Scottish, and British accents of all kinds of flavor and stripe all mixed together, and it sort of takes you out of it, but it's just a stupid soap opera. It's like I just go off on a little bit of a tangent and talk about I'm watching The Undoing on HBO, and I know it's not good. Like I knew Downton Abbey wasn't good. Downton Abbey was never good. But it doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. And I'm enjoying The Undoing kind of in this weird way because I like to look at New York, and I like to look at the Upper East Side, and it's sort of lifestyle porny, and it's sort of like this really, soapy, hyper-dramatic cop procedural, and the characters all have these kind of chewy parts. Donald Sutherland's wonderful in it as the old man whose daughter was married to Hugh Grant, who could be a killer sociopath, and Hugh Grant's wonderful as just this guy who's charming one minute but you suspect has this heart of ice, and Nicole Kidman and her miraculous forehead, which, foreheads don't really look like that after 16 years old. But anyway, it's fun to watch. I'm going to have to look up. I should have looked it up before I did this. I want to look up and see if Nicole Kidman's singing the theme song. I believe she is. Or the song that runs over the credits, which, I can't even remember what it is, but it's an old standard. But it sounds like her voice. Back to the Arrow films. And Mallrats! See, you get your Kevin Smith. They've repackaged this. You've got a 2-disc set. It's got the original theatrical cut, and then a extended cut and a TV cut, and they've got the hilarious dubbing. See, this is what they do. They do the TV cut so you can shoot the hilarious dubbing to cover up the profanity, which is just incessant in this film. This is one of my favorite Kevin Smith films, though again, like The Undoing, it's not very good. It's not very well written. It's just sort of all over the place. It's character driven, and the characters are, if you like them, you like them. You don't like them, well, that's fine. Anyway, Arrow is a wonderful company. They do this. I did not know this movie existed either. It's called Cold Light of Day, and it's about the British serial killer Dennis Nielsen, who has been compared to Jeffrey Dahmer. And one of the reasons I knew about Nielsen in the 80s because I had sort of a professional interest in serial killers, because I covered Henry Lee Lucas, and I was one of the first guys who wrote about how Henry Lucas couldn't have committed all the murders he claimed to have committed, and the police complained he committed, because it just was impossible to get from Florida to Oregon in a day and a half without, flying wheels up or something. And that's what, basically undid the whole narrative about Henry Lee Lucas, was that, no, you looked at the timeline, you looked at, they just couldn't do it, especially not some indigent homeless guy who's walking or hitchhiking or, taking a bus to get around the country. There's no way he could have committed 316 murders. And so the whole thing fell apart. And, you can see Henry, Portrait of Serial Killer, which is a very interesting Michael Rooker film that totally, ignores the facts, but it's still kind of real. I mean, it's sort of like, if poetry is a lie that gets to the truth, I think that Henry, Portrait of Serial Killer is probably a pretty good poem. Anyway, this is about Nielsen, and I had just seen Des, which is I guess it was originally a BBC show, but it was on Sundance, and it had David Tennant playing Dennis Nielsen, the serial killer. The same case that this movie covers. This 1990 movie I'd never heard of. The fun thing is Tennant looks exactly like this guy, at least the way they've done him up for this miniseries, which is 3 or 4 episodes. I think it's 3, actually. I don't think it's any longer than that, which is about as long as it needed to be. And he he looks exactly like the Google image search of this guy. I mean, it doesn't mean he looks like the guy. It means he looks like, if you went to look to see what the guy looked like, this is what you'd see. And you see these pictures, and they're almost indistinguishable from the way that David Tennant is presented in this film. So that's kind of cool, kind of interesting, because, one of the things I really like about film is the way it lets us kind of peer into our past and see things as we imagine they were. And they do a really good job of the period sort of reconstruction here. It's the same thing with The Queen's Gambit, which I wrote about today, Tuesday, actually. The period reconstruction is part of what is delicious about the film, especially if you remember the period. I think that, if we don't have any idea what it looked like ancient Rome or something like that, then, that's a different thing. But if it's a period that we can remember, like I remember the 80s very well because I was a grown-up in the 80s, at least allegedly a grown-up in the 80s, and I can remember the way things look and felt, and, and so, and even the 60s, I can sort of have a memory of. So you see these films like The Queen's Gambit set in the 60s, and I notice things that I hadn't thought about. I think there's a scene where there's a push-button phone. It's just a couple years too early for that. But other than that, it's pretty much spot on. And there's this wonderful wide shot of Mexico City in the 3rd or 4th episode. I don't know how they did it, but it's like, yeah, that's what it would look like if you were coming in there in the 60s. And the same thing with with Des. It's like the way people smoke, the things they carry around, the way they dress, the hairstyles. It's really good. It's set in 1983, 1984. And so, I don't know. I don't know anything about this film, but I do know that, it's Arrow Video, so they've got a lot of stuff on here that's cool. Again, I wish they would send these things out a month earlier than they do so we could get them in the on the home movies column. Maybe we'll make an exception, like we're making an exception for some of the Criterion stuff, which we're going to start doing a little spotlight on. We're going to use the flashback column to do that. What else have I got to cover? Well, I hope this actually worked, because I tried it before and it didn't save anything, so I'm really kind of anxious. I'm going to cut it off now. We're right at 20 minutes, which is about a good length for these things. And we'll see you at the movies. I'm going to see Let Him Go this week because I hear it's good. And I like Diane Lane. And Karen likes Kevin Costner. And so we'll just go to the movies. And there won't be anybody there, which is why it's good to go to the movies now. It's the converse of what Yogi Berra said. It's fun to go when there's no one going. So anyway, but hang in there. Maybe in a couple months, maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months, maybe 6 months, we'll be through this, and it'll all be like this weird period that we can set a movie in. Okay, see ya.